Communicating the right way is something I've had to learn to move forward, and here is where it's taking me. See, anybody that knows me, and if you watch enough of the videos on my channel, you may also notice communicating. I've never had a problem with it. As corny as it sounds, I really think that it's one of the superpowers I have. Stages don't bother me. Getting up in front of a crowd doesn't bother me. Speaking on a mic, none of that bothers me at all. I don't find it stressful or nerve-inducing or in any regard. So what I had to do and what I've practiced for a little while now is learning to listen more. See, in my personal relationship with my wife, she highlighted to me, and when I really stop pay attention, she's right about it. But she'll be saying something, or we'll be in a conversation, sort of in a group. We'll be talking to somebody, and during that conversation, it's sort of we're engaging with them, and I will a lot of times overrun what she's saying, and I've had to consciously pull back on that to pause and not try to over talk her. And so while I'm communicating, what I'm doing is I'm stepping on her ability to also communicate. So what I've done is I've worked really hard to concentrate on listening more, listening to the individual talking, paying the respect to actually look at them, because nonverbal communication is also a thing. I communicate with the nonverbal with my face a lot. If there's something I like, it's probably comes off very, very clear on my face. And what I've really worked hard to do is to make sure that I'm listening. I don't know if you've ever heard somebody say you're listening but you're not hearing me, and there's a big difference in that, right? You're looking at me, you're listening to me, but you're not hearing what I'm saying. And so, the act of listening is very, very vital. I've heard a bunch of people say you've got one mouth and two ears, so you can listen twice as well. And so, potentially calming down, slowing down, stop talking, listening to what's going on. You can pick up a lot, and you can learn a lot by how others communicate. And when you become more conscious on how the way you communicate, and then you pause and start listening, you will start picking up on what others are saying and how they are communicating. It's pretty interesting when you do it. So I've just found that my communication has become better because I've become a better listener. The other part that the second thing that I've started doing is I've started trying to find the story. So as somebody's explaining something to me, there's always an underlying story. There's always an underlying idea of what they're trying to get across. Some people just aren't clear on getting that across. So, you have to sort of pay attention to the nuances of what they're saying. Does their voice go up when they say something? Do they repeat something a lot? And listen, sort of for the story. Somebody, there's sort of like this thread that will be through the way they're communicating to you, that will be the underlying story of how they're, of what they're telling you about. A good example is, I've got daughters, and my daughter will be telling me about something going on with one of her children, and I will, listen to what she's saying, and then I will sort of say back to her that, maybe, they're reacting to the way you are handling the situation, right? That she sees it from one way, and you know, as she's communicating to me, the picture's being built in my mind that maybe you're seeing it from one way because you're too close to the situation, right? And there's always that thread, that story that's under there that is something that as you start to pay attention to that, your ability to communicate will increase, which mine has. I'm more conscious of, sort of what I'm saying, and it's helped me to recognize that maybe I should just say the story. Maybe I should just communicate straightly with what I'm, honestly and upfront with what I'm trying to say, instead of trying to weave the story to where I'm trying to convince this person of something. We all do that, where we try to, convince somebody of something, and if they're a good listener and they're a good communicator, they're going to pick up on that. So that is something that I've worked on, listening better, and then not only listening better, but listening for the story that's within what's being said. The third thing that I've learned, and that I've tried to make sure I'm doing, is that when I'm communicating to somebody, I'm being honest and I'm being vulnerable. And the reason that's really important is because most people can pick up when you're bullshitting. When you are just absolutely running, trying to run around them, trying to layer on, the story to make it either bigger or more believable. There, if you're not being honest and vulnerable, it will come through, especially if the person's a good listener. And a lot of us can pick up on that. There's a little intuition that's in there. People say listen to your gut, and a lot of times people's guts are right, and they don't know why they're right, but it's all a form of listening, and your body is subconsciously picking up on cues from somebody. They're not either looking at you or they're blinking their eyes. There's so many other ways to non-verbally communicate that, that person is not being honest. They're not being vulnerable in the conversation. They're not willing to give details, or their details are shaky or clouded. And maybe just maybe that individual, if they would truly ask themselves, are they being honest and are they being vulnerable, and they've lowered those walls and those shields, their communication to you will be much more clear. And in return, if you are, in a conversation with somebody and you're the only one being vulnerable, it becomes a very heavy conversation. It becomes a very tiring conversation. And it the communication will break down. It will not go well. It will not be received well at all. Have any of you ever been in a conversation or been in a situation where somebody's on stage speaking, and they're not looking at the crowd, they're being very forceful? I've experienced this, in church. I always say that I don't like to be preached at. I can be preached to, and that's a way of somebody communicating to me that it puts me off. I don't like to be preached at. And I hope that makes sense. But really, the keys to communicating and using communication to move you forward is a skill set that I've had to practice, and I really and truly think that if you pause a minute, listen more. While listening, try to find the story in what's being said, because sometimes, as I said, the story is hidden in amongst everything that's being said. And then, be or help facilitate honesty and vulnerability in how the communication is going, because that is going to open up so many more avenues that I have found it's opened up for me, that just trying to communicate more clear, trying to listen better, trying to listen for the story and be honest and vulnerable has so much has increased for me, that you know I always thought I was a good communicator anyways, but I have learned that there's always ways to be better. So would love to know your thoughts, the comments, subscribe to the video or the channel, and if there's anything I can help with, please feel free to reach out. And as I always say, until we talk again, live life like you mean it.